Hello, welcome to Today in Final Fantasy XIV. I am your host, Velvis O'Donnell, and for this episode, I wanted to talk about leveling. Now, this podcast at the start is going to be focused around helping newer players and returning players coming back to the game and kind of gearing themselves up for Endwalker or for whatever content they're gearing towards. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about leveling. My personal leveling experience, it was a lot harder, I kind of want to say. You didn't have a lot of access to stuff. However, if you are a certain role that you're trying to level, healers, they usually always have a dungeon that you can pop into because you kind of have the instant queue because not a lot of people want to play healer. Tanks also kind of have a faster queue time, probably not as instant as healer, sorry. But it's still pretty quick. DPS has the longest queue times for anything, just because everybody and their mother will play a DPS class, and there's a lot of DPS class to play out there. And there's nothing wrong with playing whatever you want. Just be expected that depending on what you want to play, your queue times will be affected. However, there are some things out there for you that are actually alternatives to leveling. One of the alternatives I want to talk about today is deep dungeons. There are currently two in the game. One is called Palace of the Dead, which is good for any class starting from level 1 to 60, and Heaven on High, which is for 61 to 70. For Shadowbringers, it's not necessarily a deep dungeon, but it's more of a queued instance where you get to do what skirmishes or fates, if you want to know them like that, and critical engagements, which is kind of boss fights in a way. Which, I mean, every fate's kind of like that, but it's whatever. Palace of the Dead's really good for starting off because it starts from level 1 to 60. Now, what these deep dungeons do is that you explore 10 floors starting from 1, and at the end of every 10 floors, there's like a boss. You beat that boss, and then you get out of that deep dungeon, and you get EXP based on your level and stuff like that. However, deep dungeons kind of have their own independent leveling system. So whatever level you are inside a deep dungeon does not reflect what you are outside of a deep dungeon. So it's really good if you're like trying to get used to a class or a role or something. Maybe you want to take Conjure in there for the first time to see how it plays. You can do that. And also too, these deep dungeons have a fixed party feature. If you want to go in with like your friends or alone or whatever, you can do that. Or a matched party system, which means you get queued up with random players, and the party comp can vary. It doesn't matter what it is. If you have 4 DPS in a party, you have 4 DPS in a party. If you have a tank healer 2 DPS, you can have that too. If you have a party full of healers, anything is possible. With these deep dungeons, they are actually a really good alternative way to level, and I can tell you from experience, at least when I started out leveling through deep dungeons, they helped me out a lot actually. And just doing my leveling roulettes, doing MSQ by the time I hit 50, trials, stuff like that, they were always there to help me level. Now my main character Velvis, I have everything maxed out. That includes combat classes to crafters and gatherers. I have some experience with leveling things and just no knowledge. I have 3 other characters that I don't necessarily want to level everything on, but I just kind of have them as backup characters if I want to play on a different data center, or if I want to raid but with a different character. We'll get into raiding in another episode, but beyond that, as far as leveling is concerned, for combat classes, deep dungeons is the best way to go for DPS. For healers, since you actually have that fast queue time, and for tanks, dungeons are probably your better bet. But you know, that's just from me. Now another thing to talk about is crafters and gatherers. So back whenever I had to level up my crafters and gatherers, the best way I knew how to do it was doing through leave quests. They're actually really good. It's really good alternative way to level in the game. Because you could either sit and craft, that can get you some levels, or you can do leave quests, which means you accept a quest, it's repeatable, and you get to turn in whatever item it's asking for, and you get a chunk of EXP based off that. And it's really good EXP too. For crafters, it's super simple. All you have to do is accept the quest, go to the guy, turn it in. If it's high quality, you get double the amount of experience that you would normally receive, which is really good. Um, Now, there is a buff that you could potentially get if you start a new character on a preferred world. And it's like the Road to 70 buff, and it affects everything. And you have that for 90 days. Any job or class or whatever that's under level 70 gets a buff. You get 100% extra EXP for everything that you do. Includes quest turn-ins, includes dungeon like dives, includes just leave quests, just missions and stuff, turning in everything that you could possibly think of that would give you EXP. Road to 70 doubles that. Now, beyond that, like food buffs, earrings and stuff, just those type of items are more or less tied to EXP that you gain through the overworld. So if you kill a mob or something, you gain that EXP. If you gather something, you gain that EXP bonus. If you finish a quest, it does not. If you progress through the main story, it does not. But I mean, and it also does not affect leave quests either. But leave quests are still really, really good. But right now, what we have in the game is called the Ishgardian Restoration. So if you have gotten to the Foundation in Heavensward, there is a thing that you can do, and it's in the ferviment of Ishgard, of the Foundation. It is actually an alternative way to level your crafters and gatherers, and what it is that you have something called the Diadem, and you could take in a gatherer, you gather Sky Builder stuff, you come out, you get it appraised, you get approved Sky Builder stuff, you can turn that into items, into collectibles, and turn those in for EXP and for Kupo vouchers, which you can use. It's like kind of like a lottery ticket in a way, or like a scratch off, where you scratch off and you could potentially win something that's really good or really bad. You know, it's just whatever, right? But you always walk away with something for every 5 that you turn in. I had did the Diadem. I didn't have the Foundation at the time on Velvis, but I did for Evan, I did for Shino, and I did for Velvet. And that was a massive help. I mean, I could, if I had the resources and the time, you could get all of it done in about a week with all of your crafters. Gatherers will take a little bit longer. The strategy that I have with gatherers is that the leaves work different with gatherers. Because with crafters, you would just accept the quest, turn in whatever, high quality, double the amount of EXP, you're done. And you can repeat that. But for gatherers, you actually have to do a mission to gather, and then once that mission is done, you report back and you get a good chunk of EXP. It's more time consuming, but it's worth it. And I mean, honestly, it's just a mindless grind. If you wanted to watch something and do this, you could. It doesn't require that much attention. You know, just kind of like look over it from time to time. But overall, it's not that bad. Now, one thing to say about the leave quests is that you get 3 leave quests every 12 hours. So in a full day, a full 24 hours, you get 6 leave quests. And they stack all the way up to 100 leave quests, and they will not go over. If you're just starting the game, you automatically accumulate leave quests. And for the record, most vendors, if you're doing like combat leaves, crafting and gathering leaves, they usually have a vendor that you can go to. And they usually have a blue quest icon to unlock those for you. For gatherers, they're going to be all over the place. So you'll have some in, maybe you'll start off in Gridania, but you have to go over to Hawthorne's Hut or something. Or something like that. But I did, because this is still kind of relevant if you don't want to do the Diadem strat. Which, I mean, Diadem is really, really good for EXP. But this is what I did whenever I was doing my leveling for my crafters and gatherers. For my gatherers, I did not do the Diadem. I did leave quests. And it didn't take that long. I just kind of worked at it. Probably took a couple hours just to get where I needed to be. And by the time I hit 50, leave quests don't really do much for you anymore. So like, if you still want to do leave quests, you can. It just may be more time consuming because you have to go to, like, let's say the Foundation, accept the gathering thing, but you have to travel to a whole different area to finish it, you know, and that just takes a lot of time. You can do the diadem. It's very, very good. I know I've just said that like a million times already, but I am not joking. Pop some food or whatever, pop a manual. I'll talk about that here in a second. It's really, really good. But after 50, what I did is I started working on collectibles. Now, collectibles in the game had a bit of a rework in Shadowbringers. And basically, a collectible is you are making an item. You're upping the quality of that item, and then you're getting that item at a certain quality. So, right. What I mean by collectible is that there are certain actions in the game that can help you raise the collectability of an item. Everything starts at 0. You perform an action, it goes up by some odd numbers. You want to get it to a certain percentage. I want to say, hypothetically, like 130. As soon as you get over 130, it's worth something to turn in. If it's below 130, if it's 129 or less, they will not take it. They will not see as worth turning in. So you kind of have to watch out there. Now, collectibles are really good only because they give you scripts, which is a different type of currency, and they will also give you EXP, which is also really good. And you can mindlessly grind that one too. It doesn't take too long to get where you need to go, and then afterwards you can get the time nodes, which only pop up like twice in an Eorzean day or something, or 4 times depending on the item. I think a day in Final Fantasy is like an hour or 2 hours maybe. I'm not 100% sure on that, but that's not the point right now. But once you get these scripts, which is a different type of currency, you can turn those in and you can get what's called a manual. There are 2 types of manuals. There is a gathering manual and a crafting manual. So basically what it is that you pop one of these manuals. You get a EXP buff. It's either 100% or 200%. But basically for the next 18 hours when you pop it, you have a certain EXP cap that you can get to. I think it's like 8 million EXP or something. But for that next 18 hours up to that cap of that much EXP, you gain that percentage, so it helps you level faster. So while you're out collecting collectibles and stuff, you have that manual going, and it affects the EXP that you would gain while gathering. Same thing for the crafting one. Everything that you craft, you gain a portion of EXP extra for the craft finished. So if you're doing the Ishgardian Restoration, that's really, really good as far as EXP gains. And like, it will not take long. If you dedicate time to it, it won't take too terribly long. I mean, obviously it's an MMO, so things are going to be kind of grindy, but honestly enough, it's not that bad. Take it from me. I have 4 characters. I've done it 4 times. I have a problem. But they keep actually making stuff easier to do in the game. Like, I didn't have the diadem the first time. I didn't have the foundation the first time. I actually had to do lead quests, and it took forever to get things leveled up. And honestly, in my opinion, when you're doing the MSQ, I wouldn't even worry about crafting or gathering until like you reach the foundation or something. Like, you won't ever really need to gather or craft anything unless you want to make a little bit of money or gil in the game. Then the best alternative would just to be like gathering low level stuff. Like I remember nitrin was a bit of a seller because people always needed nitrin for leather working and stuff. So I made a little bit of gil there. I'll talk about money making in a different episode, but as far as what to prioritize as a new player, work on getting your combat class leveled up. Worry about getting through the MSQ. Take your time with it. Enjoy the story for what it is. And then by the time you actually reach the end of A Realm Reborn, or you're halfway through Heavensward, that's when you can start taking the time and opportunities to level up your crafters and gatherers. Now, this is just my opinion. You can do in whatever order that you want to, but it'll be easier to you down the line if you wait until after A Realm Reborn, or if you get to the later levels of A Realm Reborn, when you have all the areas, because that's just really important. But beyond that, leveling in this game is it can be challenging if you don't know what to do. I still don't know what to do in certain situations. Whenever Endwalker releases, everything will go up to 90, so I have to re-level everything again, which I am looking forward to. Honestly enough, I am looking forward to it. Having level 90 cap, reworks for most jobs, adds stuff for the rest, and I don't know what they're going to do with crafting and gathering with Endwalker. I'm hoping it stays the same, just for simplicity's sake. But I actually really enjoy the way the game does it. Like, it always feels like I'm getting something when I'm leveling. Sure, sometimes it's a slog, sometimes it's boring, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to be fun. Like, once you get that class leveled up, you can start doing more with that class. If it's a crafter or gatherer, you can start making the good money. If it's a combat class, obviously you can start doing content with everybody else, or current content or whatever. Now, this is something I'll end off on as far as what to level first with crafters and gatherers. Honestly enough, I would recommend leveling up your gatherers first versus your crafters. Reason why is because if you can gather everything that you need to craft, that becomes a big help, because it will be easier on your pockets if you cannot get an item because you can't gather it, but you need to craft it for something. So that is my advice, is just leveling up your gatherers first and then your crafters. As far as your crafters and what to level up first, honestly, I started with Culinarian and Alchemist, because in the game, everyone can buy a piece of gear and be set forever, but people will always have to buy consumables like food, potions, stuff like that. Because everybody needs raid food, everybody needs pots, everybody needs those things. Nobody will say, I'm good. They're lying to you. Gear is it's good when it first comes out. You can make a lot of money when it first comes out. Usually it can sell, depending on the piece, like 1 million gil or something for like a piece. People who actually have millions of gil to spend will spend, so that way they don't have to craft that gear. Trust me, I was in that boat. But I hope this was somewhat informative. This is the second episode of the day in Final Fantasy XIV. I'm still trying to make this more engaging and interesting, as far as this project is concerned. And I just hope that the people who are watching and people who have listened so far, I hope you've gotten a lot out of this. If not, let me know down in the comments below, and I will take all the advice into consideration. But this has been Today in Final Fantasy XIV. I've been your host, Elvis O'Donnell, and I hope every one of you have a wonderful day in Eorzea. See ya!